Today we will continue with the homemade RC plane we made in a previous video. For several weeks I tried different configurations to improve performance. Depending on what you want to achieve, you could use one of these configurations. After building this plane, I went to several places to fly and test the flying characteristics. The problem was always the same, and that was that the small motor wasn't powerful enough to perform with good maneuverability. Instead, I had to keep the plane as stable as possible to keep it in the air. Otherwise, it lost altitude quickly. The motor only supports a voltage of 7.4 volts, which is a 2S battery. The use of a 3-cell battery will make it more powerful, but will burn it in a few seconds. So I decided to create more wing area to generate more lift and maintain the flight with the low power motor. I made wing extensions with the same airfoil. The initial plan was to place the wing extensions with a dihedral, which means that they will have a positive angle to give more stability in flight. Also, to set the motor on top to prevent the propeller popping out of the motor during each landing, especially when it crashes. But the position where I place the motor does not work at all because it pushes the plane downwards. The thrust force must be as close as possible to the center of gravity to avoid this problem happening, or at the point of equilibrium as they do in gliders with retractable engine. In that case, they are positioned slightly behind the center of gravity and thus balance with the push force. I didn't put the motor like that, but I did put it in this curious way, still protected from the shocks and better aligned to the center. The next thing I did was replace the ailerons made out of cardboard by balsa wood, because these ailerons are deteriorating rapidly and are useless after a few days. You can try more rigid cardboard, but if they get wet, they will be damaged as well. The idea is to place the ailerons along the entire wing, so I have much more control in the maneuvers, but I need to move the servos to control them more efficiently. I need a servo extension to achieve this, but a common servo extension weighs few grams that we shouldn't add to the plane. So I made my own servo extension with coated copper wire that is around 10 times lighter than the common extension. These micro servos don't consume much amperes after all, and a thin wire is sufficient. Here you can see how I can control with a single servo these ailerons, which are separated by the angle. This system is a bit tricky but works for both ailerons. Once this is done, you are ready to fly. The wings are quite long now, making this plane look more like a glider. The flight is definitely better. The support I get from these wings is superior and can maintain the flight more easily. The only slight problem is that the ailerons don't have much authority in the control of the plane, and this occurs because of the dihedral, as the dihedral auto-stabilizes the flight, but also makes it more difficult to maneuver with ailerons. In fact, the rotor has more authority to rotate. And this happens with most aircraft with a pronounced dihedral, so I recommend not putting ailerons on this configuration, and that way you save the hassle of buying and installing 2 more servos. However, I wanted more maneuverability, so I placed the wing flat and made space for larger ailerons. I used an aluminum wire for push rods. These are much stronger than the guitar strings. I calibrated the servos again and placed a landing gear that I did at home. The wheels were bought. This will allow me to take off and land like any other aircraft and will protect the propeller upon landing. Here you can see the test flights I did one morning. Maneuverability improved a lot and I keep getting the same support. This configuration is also recommended for beginners because flights are slow and safe, and in case of a crash, there's not much damage. It is better to have more power if you need it, and also make faster flights. For this, we will change the motor. This is a motor that I got even cheaper than the one that I already have, but it is much more powerful. I had already damaged one. I broke the winding with a long screw, so you have to be careful with that. I'll make a base for this motor with sufficient thickness so that the screw protrudes only a safe distance and it won't happen again. I replaced the motor, connected it all again, and we're ready to test it. This time I'll use a different propeller for even more thrust. The first flight with this motor was not successful, and a crash folded the wings in a way that affected the aerodynamics of the aircraft. It was a frustrating day. I was ready to abandon this project altogether, but I decided to pick it up and improve it by simply placing more reinforcements with wooden popsicle sticks on the wing and make them more rigid. After this, I went to fly again. After repairing the plane, I started to fly using the new motor, and the difference is amazing. I'm definitely much more comfortable with the power of this motor. I'm using a 2S battery or 2 cells, which is a maximum of 7.1 volts. But this motor can stand up to 4S, that is 16 volts or something like that. But to compensate, we will have to use a smaller propeller. I'm just going to use the same propeller of 3 blades, 5-inch, with a 3S battery. And at the time I started to fly with this combination of battery and motor, the plane really had a great force. I can fly well with only half throttle, but after flying for 10 seconds, the motor burned out. So in the end, going cheap is expensive. I bought this other motor for about the same price as the first one. It looks much better and higher quality. It has the Quantum brand, 2300 kV, but the brand says it is manufactured by DYS, which is a serious and recognized brand of brushless motors. I used the same motor base and repeated the process. I will also replace the elevator made of cardboard with one of balsa wood a little bit wider to have more control, and I will also cut the wings to its original size for maximum maneuverability and speed. I will also try different types of propellers to see which fly better, and in these first flights I'm using the 2S battery and a propeller of 5 inches 2-bladed. I can tell the difference, although the wind makes flying the airplane a challenge. Perhaps this propeller is not the best, so I switched to a 3-blade 5-inch propeller and it's much better. I then replaced the battery for one of 3S, and that was a game changer. At this point, it becomes very difficult to improve the combination of motor, propeller, and battery. I'm using the same propeller, 5-inch with 3 blades, but works fine or better with a 4-inch 3-blade propeller. The battery I'm using is a 850 mAh 3S battery, which is a very light battery. I will leave all the components in the video description so you can check them out. This configuration of the airplane is recommended to people with more experience in flight, as it requires a lot of attention to keep the plane leveled, especially on windy days, and the speed at which it can get is very maneuverable and fast. This is definitely my favorite setup. I hope you liked this video. Help me out giving it a like and sharing, and subscribe for more videos like this coming soon. See you in the next project.